Hello, this is Dr. G coming at you with another video, this time about multiple linear regression, but we're going to do categorical variables today in this video. And I want to take a brief moment for those of you who haven't seen this before. When we're doing categorical variables, we're talking about the dummy variable, okay? So, we have the conference that the team... We're doing the football data, the AP Top 20 again. So this is part of that series. So if you remember, we loaded that data for the AP Top 20 into a video, and then we built up the model with rushing, passing, and then rushing and passing. And so today what we want to do in this college football video, the teams are in conferences, and they play teams that in that conference, and then they actually play teams outside of that conference. Now, if you ask ESPN and the AP coaches poll and some of those, the top 5 strongest conferences are called the Power 5. And so what I want to do is I want to make a categorical variable conference, and I want to turn that variable into something I can use in my regression model. I can't currently use it in my regression model because it is text, okay? And so given that it's text, there's not much I can do with that to put it into a regression model. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a baseline from which the other categories will vary. And the way we do that is to make the baseline 0 and the other category 1, okay? So when you're doing a categorical variable, the reason we call it a dummy variable is because we're going to pick a baseline category, a baseline factor. We're going to pick a baseline factor of the category and make it 0. And then all of the other factors are going to be 1. And this is going to allow us to measure, okay? So we need an example. How do I make conferences dummy coded, right? How do I get my dummy variable? Well, first we kind of need to see how many conferences are in the Power 5 and how many will be left. So let's go ahead and make a conference variable and then set up a table. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm over here. I'm going to go to stat. All right, so we're going to make the table. We're going to stat tables frequency. We're just going to select conference. I don't need the relative frequency. I just need the frequency. I'm going to click on compute. And what we see is that the ACC has 2 teams. The American has 2. The Big 12 has 3. The Big 10, well, actually, if we look here, the American Conference and the Independent and Mountain West, those 3 conferences are the only ones that are not part of the Big 5. The ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pac-12, and the SEC, those are all Power 5 conferences. So if we put all 5 of them in, we're not going to have much left over, okay? So only 5, 6, 7, only 7 teams will be left over. So that's kind of an issue, right? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and make a Power 3, and I'm going to have the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12. All right, now, it's going to be easier to do it this way. There's probably some bias in these choices. If you were picking the Power 3, you might choose differently. Make your own video, okay? So now what I want to do is focus on how do we get the variable to be 1 for those 3 conferences and 0 for the rest of them. All right, perfect. So here we are. So we're going to use the ACC, right, the SEC, and the Big 12, all right? So that's going to give us 2, 3 is 5, so we're going to have 11. So that's about half of the teams out of the 25, and so that's perfect, all right? So how are we going to do this? In StatCrunch, I have to actually make 3 variables and then combine them together. Now, some of you are going to be like, what you could do is insert a column to the left, call that column Power 3, and just go ahead and put 1, right? 1, 1. Oh, that's not 1. That's a 0. This is a 1, right? 0, 1, 1, 1. You could do that. And because there's only 25, this would be really easy to do. Okay, it would be. Now, what if you had several hundred variables? You probably don't want to do it this way. So, what is a way that I can use the power of StatCrunch to not have to do that for lots and lots of variables? Here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Data, Compute, Expression, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take conference and add that column, and if that is equal to, oh, all right, so, if that is equal to the ACC, right, I want that to be equal to 1. So what I need to do is I need to have this if else, if the conference is equal to ACC, I want you to make it a 1. And if it's not, I want you to make everything else 0. And I'm actually going to call this column ACC. And I'm going to click on compute. So there's my ACC, and it only has the 1 in the places where the ACC is there. I'm actually going to do this same thing. I'm going to compute, right? Let's see. Oh, so if else, right? Conference equals. Now we're going to do the drop down, and we're going to do the SEC. I'm going to add it, and then we're going to do comma 1, 0. So if it's the SEC, it's going to be a 1. If it's everything else, it's going to be a 0. And I'm going to call this SEC. This is going to be my SEC variable. Okay. Now, last but certainly not least, I'm going to do data, compute, expression. And one last time, we're going to do if, else, add conference, equal, drop down, right? The Big 12, Big 10, the Big 10, the Big 12 is the conference that UCF is in. So that's the one I keep clicking. All right. So Big 10, add, comma, 1, comma, 0. And then we're going to close it up. So and obviously we're going to call this one big. I'm going to do 10 like this. Big 10. I'm going to do 10 like this and click on compute. So now I have the 3 of them. They only have 1s and 0s. So here's the cool part, right? We're going to do one last compute. But we're going to go from column. No, we're not. We're going to go data, compute, expression. We're going to build it up. And what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to the end, and we're going to go take that column, add it to this column, and then add it to this last column. And once they're all 3 added together like that, that's going to be my power 3 variable. And I click on compute, and there it is. I think I can move the column, and I want to move it to before total yards, so it's right next to column and conference. And so there we go. So now we can check. The ACC is 1, the SEC is 1, the Big 10 is 1, the Big 10 is 1, the SEC is 1. So perfect. So these are all done, and this is super duper nice. So that's how you would code, dummy code. That's a way that you can dummy code fairly easily in StatCrunch with any kind of qualitative, categorical variable that you have. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, comment if you have other things that you want to learn about statistics, and I'll see what I can do.